Using a ruler. Do you measure up? Today we're going to dissect these different measurements that are available on these wonderful little tools so that we can go ahead and start our drafting unit. Let's get into it. So there's two big systems. We have imperial and metric. And these are different types of units. It's like saying dollars versus euros. Two completely different systems. Inches would fall into imperial, and then you have meters, centimeters, millimeters falling into metric. And these are for distance. So I want to talk about the way that we break these down. So in the imperial system, which is inches, we start off with full inches. Now, this is going to be the gap between 1 inch and another. So let me flip this correctly. So if I'm talking these longest lines, from 8 to 9 is a full inch. From 6 to 7 is 1 full inch. Pretty clear. But when we start getting confused and when we start talking about halves and quarters and eighths and sixteenths, I mean, who even picked these fractions? Why those fractions? I'll tell you why. Because when you use inches, you're going to break it down into halves. So we have 0 and 1. We have our line that's not quite as long as our full inch lines, and this is going to be half of an inch. Okay, that's pretty clear. And if I look, there's 6, there's 7, there's half of an inch. Great. What happens if we break down half of an inch even more? So I'm going to get some more paper, because I just love my note cards. So if I get 1 whole inch, and I multiply it by 1/2, I'm going to get 1 times 1 is 1 over, let's see, 1 over 1, 1 times 2 is 2, 1/2 of an inch. Straightforward. Now what if I get half of a half? 1 times 1, 1, 2 times 2, 4. So that tells me that if I get half of a half, I'm now at a quarter. Cool. So then what's half of a quarter? So if I take 1/4 and I multiply it by half, 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 2 is 8. Oh, that's where the 8 comes from. It's half of a quarter. And then one more, even smaller lines. I'm going to do this all the way up here. We take 1/8, multiply it by 1/2. 1 times 1 is 1. Easy. 8 times 2 is 16. Boom. And that is why this is broken down into halves, quarters, eighths, and sixteenths. Now what you notice on a normal ruler, though, is that it isn't as clean cut as this up here. What you end up having is, let's see, we got the half mark, we got halfway here, but we also have halfway here. Now, if I'm just following these markings, these quarter markings, I get 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 here, and then 4/4 is 1. The reason why we can use this half is this. If I have 2/4, I can reduce this. If I divide the top by 2, I get 1. Divide the bottom by 2, I get 2. So 1/2 is the same as 2/4. All right, so let's look at this. Halfway between a quarter and a half is going to be another eighth, because that's what half of a quarter would be. So then we got these eighth marks, and then we got these tiny little 16th marks right here. Okay. So when I'm measuring things, I am counting all the little gaps, and I'm going to add them up. So if I had, let's say I'm going to measure this green marker line. Okay. So I started at the 0, and I'm going to measure all the way to the end. That's pretty easily 1/2. But now I'm going to land here. So at this point, I have to decide how many full inches I have. I got 0 full inches. Then I have to decide which line this falls under. Is it an eighth? Is it a quarter? Is it a half? What is it? So I look, this is a half, this is 3/4, half of a half. That's what it lands on. So half of a quarter is 1/8. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eighths. That's terrible. 5 eighths. Beautiful. Let's go to metric. The metric system is different. Here we have, I didn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 little dashes between the full centimeters. This is because the metric system is a decimal system. So there's 10 different options for this. It's broken down into tenths. There's no halves. No halves in this. So simply count up the number of gaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gaps. And that's how many millimeters you have in a centimeter. Much simpler system. That's why most countries use it. Now I'm switching gears. So we've been talking about the theory of inches and how it's a bunch of halves and halves of halves and halves of halves of halves and halves of halves of halves of halves. But let's get into the actual process. So what I've got is this laid out paper with my process. First thing is you're going to figure out your whole inches. The next would be to figure out what it is. Is it half inch? Is it quarter inch? Is it eighth inch? Or is it 16th of an inch? If you aren't at this level yet, don't worry, because step 3 is where you're going to continue. Count the gaps. So there you go. You're going to count the gaps and reduce. So to help you with this, let's look at A. A. Weeny, weeny, teeny, weeny one. So what it is, let's see, is it a full inch? How many whole inches? 0. Beautiful. 0. Next step. If I'm not ready to count by quarters or halves or tell, I'm going to figure out how many tiny lines I got. Now, I got 16 here. Generally, we're working with 16 little ones. Throw yourself that 16 as the denominator. Your next step is count the gaps. So when you count the gaps, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sixteenths. Can I reduce this? Yes. You can divide the top and the bottom. I'm going to go simple. You can divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. I have to divide top and bottom. We're not there yet. So I'm going to do divided by 2 one more time. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the answer to the first one is a quarter. Let's go. I'm going to jump to D. Let's see D. I'm not talking music. Whole inches. How many do I got? Looks like from the starting point of C right here, it is 1. Boom. Write it down. Now, I'm just going to go with the method where I can't tell the quarters different from the halves or whatever. As you get better, you start to recognize these things. It comes with practice. So now I'm going to use 16ths as my denominator. Boom. Now that I got my 16ths, from the last inch that I already counted, I'm going to count the gaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 sixteenths. So now I got 12 sixteenths. Can it be reduced? Yes. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 16 divided by 2, 8. Can I divide it again? Yeah. 6 divided by 2, 3. 8 divided by 2, 4. Boom. 3/4 of an inch. So we got 1 3/4. We're all set. 1 3/4 of an inch for D. No, C for C. At this point, you can do your activity or you can follow along. You are currently watching because you want a little bit more help. Let's go to E. Step 1. How many full inches do I have? Let me see. 1, 2, 3. 3 inches. Now, I'm going to put 16ths at the bottom there. Boom. Now, from the 3, 1/16. That's it. Now, I didn't do D. So, I'm going to count full inches. 2. Now I'm going to count the little gaps. I'm going to set myself up with 16ths, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 16ths. 2 and 6 16ths. 6 divided by 2, 3. 16 divided by 2, 8. So that becomes 2 and 3/8. Easy. Let's go to B. B. How many full inches? 0. How many gaps do I have? So, my quick trick, if I'm dealing with 16ths, and I know I have a 16th here, I can count backwards. So this is 16 16ths. This could be 15 16ths. Very handy. But you can just count the gaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 16ths. I think you're ready for some practice on your own. This is a picture with all the answers so you can check your work. This is a web browser with the Ruler Game. You're going to be going into rulergame.net, not .com, .net, and I want you to play the original inch ruler game. In this game, you have this yellow box, and that's going to start the game. Now, before you start, you got to set the rules. So, preferences, timer, on or off. If you need extra time, turn it off. Practice is only good if you do it well. So if you don't give yourself enough time, you're not going to get better. Now, if you can't handle 16ths, that's fine. Drop it to 8ths, drop it to quarters, and try to push yourself up that level of difficulty because it only gets better. Your skills only get better over time. So, I'm going to go to 8ths, and I say start new game. When I start the game, you're going to see a score here, timer, it'll give you time, how many strikes, how many you got wrong, your level, I don't know what that means. There's your time. But let me show you. I start a new game. It gives me a readout. So I'm going to count 2 and 7/8. 2 and 1/8. 2. Easy. 1. Easy. 2 and a quarter because it's half of a half. 2. Let's go. 3/8. 3 and 1, 2, 3/8. 1 and 3/8. Boom. 1 and 1/4. 1 and 5/8. 1, 2 and 7/8. And then you can get better and smoother and faster. Just be careful that you're hitting the right things. 3 and 1/8. Anyway, try to get a top score. This is great practice. And I want to show you what happens if you get it wrong. You go, let's see, 2, that's a strike. Okay, 2. 3/8, okay, 3/8. I'm going to say 2 again. You get 3 strikes, you're out. You're trying to get a high score. Once you are finished practicing this for whatever amount of time the teacher says, I have some worksheets for you to complete and submit for a grade. Happy measuring!